another spectacular episode of Chasing Liberty with Jake, and I am your host, Jacob Vandenplas, chairman of the Libertarian Party of the state of Wisconsin and our 8th congressional district candidate this year for 2022. And joined with me tonight is my very, very special guest host here, Mr. Jess Heisel. How you doing tonight, Jess?
Glorious, buddy. Glorious. Glad to
Excellent.
be here and see you. We're golden.
Glad to have woken up in the greatest country in the world, right?
Amen. Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
People tell me how.
Is that debatable? We can debate
People
about
ask
that.
me how my days are going. I was like, oh, we can most certainly debate about that. Lots happening in the last couple of days here. Lots happening with our federal government here. One of the big things on the topic of the news today was Mr. Joe Biden passing the student loan forgiveness. I
Was it for 10,000?
can't even. Yeah.
It was up to 10,000?
So I have to look at it, and there's only certain grants it's good for, but this is another perfect example of the government trying to fix something, making it worse, and then trying to fix it again. And in turn, it's only going to make it worse, and it's just going to continue to snowball into crap. Okay. Over and over and over again. The government was never designed to do these type of things, and every single time they do, it creates a bigger mess for ourselves. The Patriot Act most certainly is not patriotic. The Affordable Care Act did not make health insurance more affordable. In 2010, when the federal government started to back student loans, that actually drove the cost even higher. When the goal was to actually keep the cost down, and now they're trying to settle this again. 12 years later in 2022. And here's a fatal flaw. And I think it was Milton Friedman once said, we've always failed, and it's not an exact quote, but we should never judge legislation on its intentions, but we should judge legislation on its results. Okay. So the government going in and trying to help with tuitions and so on and so forth ended up being bad. But instead of actually repealing that legislation and taking that legislation away and setting things back to the way it was, we stack more legislation on top of that yet again. And this is what we see over and over and over again with our government, is when they try to do something, it creates more problems and they stack more legislation on. And now we're at the point now that all the bills that you actually read is nothing more than amendments. It's crazy. Has everybody tried to read a bill?
Well, they can't get along enough to actually get stuff done to pass it, right? They have to bash the other side until they have the majority, and then they can push stuff through. And you forgot the Inflation Reduction Act, which has nothing to do with inflation. Called you out.
Actually raises inflation.
My problem with the education forgiveness is it's $10,000, and for the past 2 years they've had delays. Right, you could get on there and delay your education program or education payments. So for 2 years, people could have been paying it back without that interest, right? Because they didn't have to make payments, defer their interest. And now, when it's about ready to kick back off, they say, "Okay, we're going to take $10,000 off of you." I disagree. If you've had 2 years to get everything in order, and at the beginning, it was a shit show. Oh, I didn't even have my beeper on today. Damn it. It was a little confusing for everybody, you betcha. But now people know, and you should be able to go out and be able to pay your student loans off by now. You can defer. You could have deferred for the last 2 years. It's time. Pay it off. You froze there, buddy. Are you still there?
Oh,
there you are. You're good.
yeah, I know.
Uh-oh. No. Cut out on me there for a second. So we did go into, we talked about the Affordable Care Act not that long ago. It was probably about 2 months ago on some old shows. I could probably find out the date. But we talked about in the last 2 decades about the rising costs that occurred once the Affordable Care Act came out. And same thing as Obamacare, it's the exact same name. But when it's written behind closed doors with Nancy Pelosi and nobody else has any input in it, Jake will be back in a second. And without any input in it, of course, it's written by the people that control the prices. I was talking about the Affordable Care Act, how it's written behind closed doors. And hopefully you're there. Cool. But if you look at the prices, they've almost tripled in healthcare cost since that came out. Prescription drugs came out, and this is one of the things that they addressed in the Inflation Reduction Act was to cap some of the prices, but it was only like on insulin and very select few for the prescription drugs. So it's really, if they fix the Affordable Care Act, which they won't do because it's ran by the healthcare industry, it's a no-win situation for the people. So Jake is still frozen. Okay, cool. I will text him and say you're still frozen. So two things. One thing I wanted to bring up tonight is education, and he'll be back on. And let's talk about education first. And then I just got a message from a gentleman named Kyle Yudes. Great guy. He ran for lieutenant governor as a Republican, and he also runs Recipes for Freedom website. Neat website, is great. Go check it. Well, it's a Facebook page. You can go check it out there. All right. So one of the things that they had found is, let's talk about the Kyle Yudes lieutenant governor, is the votes for governor and then all the votes for lieutenant governor aren't adding up, right? They're not. They should be pretty close to the same number as people going for the primary elections, but they're not. So they're about 20,000 to 32,000 off. So it's a little bit of why. All right. So when people go into the votes, more than likely, if you're going to vote for governor, you're probably going to vote for lieutenant governor. If 20 to 30,000 people didn't vote for lieutenant governor, well, those numbers aren't matching up. So why is there a 20,000 discrepancy? Things that make you go, So they're looking into that, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that in the future. Next thing. Okay, so I'm going to bring up this other screen here. All right, so let's do this. Let's share this screen about educational funding. So I was down talking to my local school district today, and one of the things I found is, so the school is funded in two ways. There's a general funding and there's a special education funding. And this is crude, I know, this is last minute, I'm sorry. But for your general funding, so in the fiscal year 1920, they had 6.4 billion. So that's when Evers came into office. So you can see here for the next fiscal years, it is increasing. So 2021 is 6.7 billion, 21-22 is 7.7, 22-23, almost $8 billion. So they have raised it $1.5 billion in this tenure. Here's the problem. Okay, so, and then if you look at special education funding, in order for special education funding to really be fully established, it's got to be close to $1 billion. At where we're at right now, 518 million, there's still cuts. So some of that special education funding is definitely lacking. So, oh yeah, special education funding was the same for 12 years. It was stuck at 369 million for 12 years. And welcome, thank you, Scott Walker, for messing that up. Anyway, so back to the general funding. Okay, we've went up $1.5 billion across the state, which is a significant amount. That is a lot of money. The problem that we have is the funding formula that these schools are using. It's not getting to the schools. So what that means is, and Jill Underly ran on this. She's the new the Tony Evers superintendent when he went from superintendent to governor. That vote, she's in the office. Okay, sorry, messed that up. Anyways, so she's in there. She campaigned on fixing this formula, and it's not. So the problem is with $1.5 billion, it's not going to your schools. And here's why. Because the funding formula, what it does is it actually isn't a formula. It uses the historical data. So when this first came out, it started back in the 70s, and it was revamped a little bit in the 90s. But during the 70s, when this came out, they said, hey, how much do you pay for your school? And it's been adjusted a little bit off of that number. So you're talking for 50 years, schools have been stuck in this funding formula and they're historically the same. So when you shove $1.5 billion into it, because they had, 15 million the year prior, well, now they're going to get 15 million or 15.1 million. They're not getting the increase that they need. So a lot of these schools that are getting this $1.5 billion are some of your larger schools. Got no problems with that, really don't. But I do actually have one problem. I'm sorry. The problem that I have is that these schools are immaculate. They are pristine. They've got multiple lines in their I call them chow halls because I'm military. They got multiple areas in there that they can go get different types of food. You don't see that at rural schools. Okay, you see the nasty processed chicken nuggets or the basic stuff that's horrible that the kids don't like because it's got to meet the DPI standards for their food, except for there. So this money is going there and it's not staying to your rural schools. So the problem that I have is that it's not funded correctly through the formula, and nobody's trying to fix this, and I don't see them even trying to. There's people that have been screaming about this for years. WPEN, Wisconsin Public Education Network, they're over 10,000 strong. They're trying to do this. They've even got lobbyists that push the lawmakers to try to fix this, and it's still not happening. So yeah, I don't see how this is even going to work. So I'm going to text Jake here. Coming back on? Question mark. We'll find out. If not, this could be an easier night because we didn't even have a campaign update from this guy yet, and that's what we want to do. I'm really trying to showcase Jake and especially some others in the Libertarian Party. Neil Harmon, he's also running for Secretary of State. I'm tired of the Republicans and the Democrats. I really am. They're not even trying to do anything to help the people. So we know that we need a change. Everybody sees this. There's another gentleman, Alex Rodriguez, I believe is his name. I'm going to find out for you. Great guy. He is trying. Alex Darlington. Oh, boy, did I mess that up. Alex Darlington. He's actually reached out. Hey, look, I'm still sharing my screen. There he is. Alex had reached out to the Unity Party, and he's got the Stair Party and a couple other people on there, and he's trying to get these parties to come together and unite. Alex said something to me, and I've been believing it for a while, that if we don't fix this, Jake's trying. If we don't fix this, we're worried about where it's going to go. We're worried about, like, if you take, for example, the person that just tried to jump into the FBI office, idiot, I believe it was down in Ohio, because, the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago after Trump, and yeah. So this guy was an idiot. He tried to go after the FBI. He couldn't get into the building. He messed it up. And then FBI ended up tracking him down, and obviously he's no longer with us. But that's the type of stuff that I'm getting worried about, I know. And I know a lot of other people are too. So Alex Darlington here, is trying to fix that before that happens. So I wonder, and I shared my screen already, so you can probably go back and get his email address. But if you want to help him, Alex does need some help. And I'm going to try to help him out here in Wisconsin and get some people together. And what I'd like to do is, once these people to come together, the independents, the third parties, Libertarians, Green Party, Constitution Party, whatever, there's commonalities between those, and let's fight for those, right? The Green Party is trying to push for the final five, which is great. You have 5 people up in the debate stage. You talk about it, you're going to get the best candidate out of those 5. I love that. That's a good thing to fight for. Ranked choice voting. I think that's another great one to fight for. Help some of these people out. Another one, third one that I'd like to try to do is, if we can get the voter registry, you can buy those from a lot of organizations that have them. If you get the voter registry, give that out to these third parties. They need it. They can help contact people, some of the voters out there, and just say, hey, this is me. This is who I am. Come check out my platform. Come look at it, because the other side's not doing it. So something that I was going to try in Wisconsin, and Alex, I see, is going to try a little bit more national. So he's got his work cut out for him, and he needs some help. So eventually, it'll be a collaboration between a lot of parties, and a lot of parties are taking it to their national committees to try to, hey, do we want to jump onto this bandwagon, have a seat at the table, and try to get some commonalities between them. So that was where I was going to go for a rant this week, but I needed Jake because I was going to ask him some questions too. So, with that said, I don't think Jake's going to make it, but if he does, I'm going to sign off. If Jake makes it, we'll just pop back on here, and you can always just catch us on the rerun, right? All right. Well, people that have been here, thank you so much. 16 minutes in, awesome. Have a glorious night.